We're going to wrap it up. The big thing we are going to try to figure out today is how do what we believe is right and wrong change? How do we defend what's right and wrong? How does defending our right and wrongs change our morals, change our character, etc.? So at the point where, let's write this on the board so everybody can get a little reminder of where we're at. We are right here on the 10th step. We continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. So at this point, most people they've figured out, done the inventory on their emotions. They've been working on their character development, and they get to a point where they make their amends and they're making all these changes. This is the point where we continue those changes. Now, the purpose of the daily inventory is to stay on top of these changes over an extended period of time. And what happens when you stay on top of the daily changes is big things don't become big things. Hopefully you can prevent big things from happening before they actually happen, such as, and this is comparative to restoring anything. Usually I compare this to restoring like a car or something like that. So say you restore the car. It's totally restored. Now the focus is maintaining, changing the oil, putting gas in it, making sure the airs have tires, making sure there's air in the tires, etc., etc. If you do not maintain one of those daily, monthly, weekly, whatever things you need to do, then the car ends up having problems. And one could look at the type of problem you have and go back to some lack of maintenance that maybe occurred or whatever the cause of the problem is. This is about noticing things before they become big problems. This is like seeing the oil change light and saying, yeah, I should probably get my oil changed instead of postponing it. And it's not just, seeing that. I mean, in this case, it's about making sure we're maintaining the things to prevent unmanageability from occurring in any area of life. It's not just, our recovery. It's also about honesty. Am I leaving things undone? Am I making amends when I should have? Am I talking to people in recovery? Did I pray today? Did I meditate today? These are all questions that people usually never ask themselves. Some people never take the time to sit down and take a personal inventory of their day. How was my day? Did I leave anything undone? Did I hurt anybody? And if you see some patterns developing, like, why am I always arguing with this person? Why is this thing always happening at work? Instead of just having these things randomly happen, there could be a pattern to it. Maybe it's the same person we're having this issue with. Maybe it's the same person we're having to make these amends to. And if we keep on having these problems occurring in relationships, hopefully we also have these problems occurring on a foundation of knowing how we handle our emotions, some common patterns that have developed, hopefully knowing our character defects and how we're totally able to act on these again. And we also probably know the power of forgiveness and the power of understanding and empathy and making amends whenever we should. So when we see ourselves continuously acting on these same behaviors, hopefully it's on a foundation of those things, and we can question, was that right for me to act that way? Is it wrong for me to act that way? I mean, maybe some of the emotions that we have are completely justified. And we were talking about that last week. Maybe you're in a situation where anger is something that you would feel. Resentment is something that you would feel. Maybe you are tired. Maybe you are, bored, or maybe you are scared, or whatever the case may be. Is it right for me to be scared of this? Is it wrong for me to be scared of this? Who will I become if I continue to act this way? What are some things that could happen? And most people don't sit down at the end of the day and ask themselves these questions, and they don't yield the results that they want. Maybe they think about it, but they don't take action behind it. You know what I'm saying? So some people this is automatic. You know, hopefully for some people, they may be saying, I don't need to do something like this because I already do this. Well, that's great. Keep on doing it. Maybe there's some questions in here that you may want to add to your daily routine of asking yourself these questions. Now, comparatively, if somebody were to do this, document this type of data on a daily basis. People do this all the time. People do this with weather. They do this with like marketing. You know, they do like sales and stuff like that. They do this with traffic patterns. You know what I mean? They take these daily inventories to, you know, determine the right way to go, the wrong way to go. If you go this way, you're going to hit traffic. If you go that way, if we sell this, it's going to stay on the shelf. If we sell this, it's going to fly off the shelf. You know, even for someone doing an individual thing, like some kind of health goal. If someone is, you know, has a goal to run a certain distance, you know, hopefully as time goes on, they're getting closer to the distance they're running in their training, or they want to run. If somebody wants to gain or lose weight, you could track your daily caloric intake to see where you are in comparison to that goal you want. And when you do that over a period of time, you see trends start to occur. And you may notice trends occurring in response to different type of stressors at work, maybe different types of stressors at home, perhaps. Is it right for me to have this stress at work? Maybe your job is stressful. You know what I mean? Maybe it is a super stressful job. And yes, that stress is totally justified. Well, is it right for me to carry that stress home with me? And or should I leave that stress at home? Or at work? How can I leave that stress at work so I'm not bringing it home or whatever? However you're going to imagine, wherever we start to see these problems occurring, hopefully we start to develop an association between the feeling and doing, and whether what we're doing in response to these feelings is right or wrong. Do I owe an amends? Do I not owe an amends? Should I keep on pushing this task off that I have, or should I just get to it today? You know, these are questions that may be discovered through doing a daily inventory. And when you do the daily inventory, maybe you're not even discovering, you know, things that you need to get done. Maybe you're also discovering time to get it done. You're discovering easier ways to get it done without exhausting massive amounts of effort or anything like that. Has anybody practiced taking a daily inventory before? Raise your hand.
Not a legit one.
Not a legit one? Okay. All right. And these inventories can also be done in active addiction, you know, from taking an inventory of how much we're using and how often on a day-to-day basis, you know, especially near the end of our addiction, it becomes apparently clear that we have become addicts or alcoholics. Like, it's abundantly obvious. When previously, if we were taking a daily inventory and saying, whoa, I got shit face here in 1 week, and maybe questioning and considering these things and thinking about them, perhaps it may have deviated the outcome. No guarantee. There's no saying that it could have or would have, you know what I'm saying? But we never did that, probably. Or maybe we did do that and we were powerless over actually changing it because of physical withdrawals or whatever the case may be. And maybe there were amends that we owed on a day-to-day basis, because if we are getting very, very drunk or high many times a week, you know, then we may end up owing some amends. And are we making these amends? In active addiction, are we saying, I'm sorry every single time we hurt someone? Or are we just letting it go? And what happens when we just let it go and don't say I'm sorry and admit our wrongs? Those things pile up. And what does it take to cover the feeling of guilt and shame or fear and resentment that piles up? That might take a lot of alcohol, you know, or a lot of something to suppress or change that feeling over an extended period of time. And maybe what we start to think is right, we used to think it was right, maybe that starts to become wrong. And what we start to think was wrong maybe begins to become right. You know, morals change because I'm not taking a look at my daily behaviors. And this just goes on. I mean, in active addiction, the 10th step in active addiction goes on and on and on and on and on. And it goes until people start to pray and meditate. What the heck is wrong with me? How did I get here? What ended up happening? How did this happen? I don't even know how I got here. I need to figure out how I ended up here, and I need to get myself out. That is 11th step right there. We sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him at that point, and praying only for knowledge of his will and the power to carry that out. So it's like, how do I get out of this? Maybe it's a foxhole prayer. Maybe it's a literal prayer. As we just somehow come to the realization from some horrible thing, maybe. Maybe it's not horrible. Maybe it just is a combination. Who knows what causes us to get to this point? But it is most definitely daily behaviors over and over and over again. And if those daily behaviors are capable of getting us in places where our relationships are bad, alcohol becomes such a major problem, et cetera, then it's possible that there are little behaviors that we can engage in that go a far way. Just consider staying sober, how much just staying sober has improved areas of our lives on just taking a daily inventory of maybe your clean date. You know what I mean? Maybe the amount of clean time you have, and that is an inventory that you have taken that is compounded, hopefully, to other changes in our lives. Any questions, comments, or concerns before we jump into some of the literature? The difference between right and wrong. How does it feel when you're doing something wrong? How do you know you're doing something wrong when you're doing something wrong?
You have a bad feeling?
What is that feeling?
Guilt.
Guilt? Where do you feel it?
Your stomach.
Your stomach? Yeah. In the stomach. Where else? Heart rate maybe increases. Does it? I don't know. You're about to do something that's not right. Let's get into you start freaking out. You're like, whoa. Oh man, like I remember maybe you're going on maybe you're drinking and driving the first time. Maybe you're nervous, maybe you're not. Maybe you think you got it. Maybe we think just consider a relapse, right? Consider something like that. If somebody were to relapse, maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe you go and you leave here, you stay sober for a couple days, and it's, the football game, and you're going to get some stuff and end up just having a drink. Nobody sees you. You sneak a nip or something like that, and you get away with it. What might happen from something like that?
That manageability comes back.
Is it going to come back like that, though?
For me, it does.
Okay. How so? What play the tape through. What would you imagine happening?
Off and running, and when I pick up one, I go until I don't have any more money and I can't rob, cheat, and steal anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it runs out, I end up calling an ambulance and having go to a psych unit somewhere.
Mm.
That's what I take that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not bad.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? If you were to play that tape through, what do you imagine happening? Like, did anybody get arrested the first time they drank and drove?
No. Yeah, no.
Like, how many times do you think you drank and drove? Somebody drinks and drives before they get a DUI.
I've been for about 3 years.
3 years, right? Just consider that, you know? I mean, after 3 years of doing something, maybe a couple times a week or more, you might think you're pretty good at it, dude. It's not that big of a deal. It's not that wrong. You see what I'm saying? From doing, like, the morals around something like that change. And how long does it take before that change occurs? Like, where in those 3 years did that happen? Was it after the first time? Was it after the second time? You know, I hear some people talk about they loved drinking and driving. They were like, I totally loved it. They'd put the music on. They would just be jamming, cruising, and that's their report of it. You know what I mean? It's like, how long is somebody doing something like that to get to a response like that? Maybe it was immediate. Who knows? You know, how long did it take to get somebody out of that, though? You know, how do you get somebody to start thinking that that's like a bad idea or something like that? You know, it may take some time. It may take some consistent research, some consistent trying, maybe. I mean, you can't force somebody to believe something, but like, what do they say? You can bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, but you can make him thirsty. So maybe they end up drinking because they're thirsty. Maybe they end up taking the message because they're thirsty, you know? And what is my message going to be over an extended period of time? You know? What is my message going to be over an extended period of time? Maybe right now, my message is something different than what it's going to be a year from now. I don't know. You know, what are you going to be telling people a year from now? You're going to be saying, I've been to rehab 12 times. You know, I went to rehab a year ago. You know what I mean? Is your message going to be, I'm still sober? Is your message going to be, that was a waste of time? What is your message about just treatment in general? You know what I mean? It doesn't work. It's a bunch of hoopla. You know, it does work. You know, I can't wait to go back next winter. You know, I would send a friend or family member there. Maybe your message is it works. You know, I don't know. Like, has anybody been to treatment before? Raise your hand. What is your message? What would you say if you've gone through the routine, you've graduated, you've been through it? What do you think is, what's the right, and should someone go to treatment? Is it right or wrong for someone to go to treatment?
Not wrong.
I got something to say on that. I
Go ahead.
tell you, when you're ready, when you have enough pain, and you want it for yourself, and you're done with the shit, then it's good to go to treatment. But I think you should suffer until you want it, to make your recovery stronger. It's true.
Yep, I agree. Anybody else? What's your opinion on treatment?
I think it's very good because it gets you back, get structure back in your life and routine and start holding you accountable for things, you know, that maybe have been unmanageable in your life before.
Yeah, that too.
Yep.
If you work it.
What else? Anybody else? Anybody else? What is, if you haven't been to treatment before and this is your first experience with treatment, how is your experience so far? What are your opinions on it so far?
Pretty good. It does work if you work it. That's my opinion.
Okay.
It's not a quick fix. It's just a stepping stone.
Is do you feel like you're on the right stepping stone?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I think that relapse prone people have a need to hurt more to interrupt that relapse pattern. I've needed that to break that pattern. So it's been beneficial for me. Yes, I still sit here in front of you again, but it's been very effective for me.
Now, although it's painful and although all of that, like you're saying, it's still the right thing for you to be here.
Mhm.
Like it would have been perhaps the wrong thing for you to have stayed out there trying to control it on your own. I mean, can most people in here agree with that?
Yeah.
You know, like you can look back on your past time in sobriety and say, I mean, at least I did it. It's been I did the right thing. You know what I mean? I've been doing the right thing. Is there anybody in here thinking that this was a bad idea? I should have got sober at home. Okay, I'm in that. How did we get? Just imagine, how did we get to that point? I used to think getting sober at home was the right thing to do, and going to rehab was wrong. How do I get to a point? And this is kind of like what we're talking about. Like you have to be ready. And what is ready? Ready is on a foundation of pain most of the time. Not always. I can be ready on a foundation of somebody else's pain. I can be ready on a foundation of positivity and wanting more, wanting to feel more of that. But pain might be one of those things, you know? And if you work it, it does work. This isn't the be all end all. It's a stepping stone to where we need to be. And maybe the whole process that we did of learning our emotions and handling our character defects and shortcomings and making these amends, maybe this whole recovery process up to this point is just a stepping stone to get me to the next place. Well, what the hell is the next place? You're not going to discover that today. Maybe tomorrow, maybe today. I don't know. But if you're not looking at the opportunities that are in front of you, the changes that are occurring, we may be naive to these moments in our day-to-day that are setting us up for the next change to occur. Like that, to me, is the 10th step. Like maintain what you got, and then maybe something will show up, and there's your next journey. This is just a stepping stone to get us to where we need to be. And most of the time when people are at this point, they're not saying like, oh, I mean, you can, but most of the time they're not like, oh man, this is fantastic. They're saying, man, this character defect's affecting me pretty bad, or this emotion's been affecting me pretty bad, or I'm still addicted to cigarettes, or I still have this problem in my life. Like maybe I could fix that. Maybe I could work on that. You know, we're not perfect. So through our daily inventory, we may start to discover more things that we can work on and see that this recovery thing, this getting sober was just a stepping stone to maybe work on my depression. Maybe it was just a stepping stone to finally start to lose weight. It was a stepping stone to get me to the point where I could quit smoking cigarettes. I had to be in recovery to have this family or to make this moment happen. Or if I was drinking, I would have never been here for this, my friend's graduation, or, you know, my kids, you know, this or that. And it's like you start to see purpose is developing from these moments. I'm starting to see that what I once saw was wrong is actually right. And what caused this to happen? How did I get to a point where what I was doing before I thought was wrong is now right? Like, how do I get there? And this is where, like, how did I get here? You know, this is where you start to do that. Like, wow. So it's not only engaging in right or wrong, but questioning right or wrong, and questioning how I got to the place where, like, critically thinking about my own development. And if I don't think I've developed, then I have nothing to critically think about. If I don't think I've changed, if I don't think things are changing in my life, if I think everything's the same, then maybe I'll tell you what, that's data right there. Like if everything seems the same, then there's your data. Like whatever the results of this daily inventory is, if I feel stagnant, whatever, what is causing me to feel this way? I would love to discover this answer. Is it right for me to feel stagnant? Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe you've been doing the same shit for who knows how long, or maybe it's not. Maybe you're doing a lot and you shouldn't be stagnant. Why am I feeling this way? These are the ways that this is kind of how we start to question it, and putting it down on paper can be helpful. So now we're going to start reading some of this literature and getting into what they have to say here. This step tells us that we promptly admit when we're wrong. The step seems to assume that we know when we're wrong, but the fact is that most of us don't, at least not right away. It takes the consistent practice of taking a personal inventory for us to become proficient at figuring out when we're wrong. Let's face it. When we were new in recovery, we had been at odds with the rest of the world for some time. Our living skills were reduced to the animal level. We didn't know how to communicate with others well. We began to learn in recovery, but in the process, we made a lot of mistakes. Many of us went through a period of time when we became very rigid about the values we had developed in recovery. We applied that rigidity not only to ourselves, but to everyone around us. We thought it was principled and correct to confront those whose behavior was unacceptable. In truth, it was our behavior that was unacceptable. We were self-righteous and overbearing. We were wrong. Or some of us, after years of being a doormat to everyone, to walk across, decided our recovery required us to become assertive, but we went too far. We demanded that everyone treat us perfectly all the time. No one could have a bad day or fail to return our call. No one was allowed to become emotionally unavailable for any length of time. We angrily demanded perfect service at the places we did business. We weren't being assertive. We were being immature and belligerent. We were wrong. We can end up being wrong if somebody else hurts us. How? Say our sponsor says something to us, hurtful to us. Instead of taking it up with our sponsor, we talk to 10 or 12 of our closest friends in the next 3 meetings we go to. Before the week is through, half of our local NA community is talking about the rotten thing we did. And so, dude, did we already do this?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I apologize. I'm like reading this like this sounds familiar. And I believe we went all into this. And I believe I even read all these questions.
Yeah, you did. Yes.
Fantastic. Now we're moving into prayer and meditation. Give me one. All right. So now let's move along. I am sorry about that. I hope I gave you a little bit more insight. And moving on into prayer and meditation. Damn, my notes. I must have fucked up my notes from last week. All right. Now, moving on into 11. We sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. So as a result of doing this daily inventory, we start to realize patterns. We start to see that how, like I said before, how did I get here? Maybe this is actually working. I'm changing. I'm developing. Maybe like is like how did I once believed that I couldn't get here, and then I do the work and I end up getting here. And we're trying to improve our conscious contact with God. We're not saying we have not had conscious contact. This is implying that we actually have had conscious contact with our God. And what we're doing now is actually trying to improve that conscious contact, right? Does that mean that I've been having unconscious contact with my higher power? How has my conscious contact with my higher power began to develop so far? Have I been praying and meditating this whole time? What is prayer and meditation? Is meditating sitting down in front of a YouTube video, listening to gongs and stuff? Is meditation breathing? Is meditation just thinking about stuff? What is prayer? Does prayer work? Does prayer work for everyone? Does prayer just work for me? How do I understand God? What is the knowledge that I need? How far have I actually come? How the heck did I even get to this point, right? Step 11 is something that you can do every single day. You can pray, you can meditate, you can do these things every single day. There's a lot of science around meditation. Haven't found a lot of science around prayer. We're going to break that down, talk a lot about it. But for meditation, there's a ton out there. You can learn a lot from it, not only with the benefits of like reduced anxiety and lack of, you can change your stress levels and yada, yada, yada. You can also learn a lot about yourself. You can also change, hopefully, the course of your life. You can come to discoveries that some people never actually come to. And the purpose of what we're doing here is to improve our conscious contact. We've already been having conscious contact. I've already been doing it. I've already had this relationship with God. I've been kind of doing this my whole life, maybe. For some people, maybe they've been doing this their whole life. Question: how has your relationship with God evolved and changed over your entire lifetime up until today? Amazingly?
Yes, sir.
Can you run me through what was how your relationship with your higher power has developed? Like, what was your relationship with God when you were a kid to teenager and just like all the way to now? Tell me the story of your relationship with God.
Okay, it's actually pretty awesome. So I grew up in church ever since I was born, I'm pretty sure. I got baptized at 14 at a church camp, but once my addiction started getting bad, at like 16, I completely pushed away God. I felt God before. It was crazy. Like, I literally cried one day at that church camp, and I felt God's presence so much. And so I think I always believed in God, but once I started messing up in life, I decided to not believe in Him. And I always thought I was an atheist an agnostic after that, because I was so far gone. And let's see. Then it started, and then, so for a big period of my life, I was literally so stuck in my ways that, like, I didn't care about anything, and I barely even cared about myself. It was crazy. And then recently, like just recently, like two months ago, I noticed I was spiritually fucked up, like bad, and it was a spiritual awakening. I was watching these fucked up, scary videos on YouTube, and I was like, yeah, I need God. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy how I translated that, but I was like, man, I'm fucked up. So then I was like, I need God. I was starting to get tired of my addiction, and I didn't ask for God right away to remove my addiction, but I started, what's it called? Hold up.
Take your time.
I started becoming open to the idea of God, just simply because I knew I needed Him. And I still wasn't trying to be sober, but then, like, a week after that, I started praying, and I don't know how I got to that, and why I didn't start the day I knew I was sick. I talked about it with a friend and stuff, and then I started praying, and like I kept asking him to. I already knew how to pray and stuff. No foxhole prayers or nothing. I just started saying my gratitudes and my gratefuls, all that, and I asked him for strength to do his will. Everything besides being sober, because I just got back from a relapse. And what's it called? Let's see where I was. Yeah. And then I started really believing in him because he showed me that there's people that care for me around me. He showed me, what's it called? He started working in me in a way. He started giving me those strengths. He put me in situations where I could practice those strengths. And then it just kept building and building. And then when I relapsed and left, he showed me that I wasn't ready for the real world yet. Yet by taking my car away from me, because that was my job. I think everything happens for a reason too, because of God. So I think he did that to me to tell me to slow down and that I'm not mature enough to go on to the real world yet. That's how I could tell. And let's see. Anyways, I started listening. I started praying more, and he finally gave me the strength to actually do it this time through that realization of the car crash and taking it away from me. And man, he's just worked a lot on me. You can ask everyone here. I'm a completely different guy now, and it's crazy. Like, he talked to me when I was on the phone with my mom, and I said shit that I used to never, like, it hurt saying. I even told her that when I used to talk about the certain subjects, sobriety and stuff, it used to irk me and make me mad. But I even told him, I was like, man, I didn't even want to say that. And things have been getting so much easier. I learned that acceptance really helps me deal with the stuff I don't want to do. And I understand giving it to God now through acceptance. I understand that. And it's just making me more will for him. It's crazy. Like, I used to not believe the shit. When people said God was speaking through me, I didn't believe them. I was like, you're crazy, or I was just like, that's stupid. But I finally believed that.
Awesome, dude. So, thank you for sharing, man.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's like evolved over time. You were kind of like put into the relationship by your family. Then it kind of like you just stopped believing. And now you've started believing again. It's been coming back. The signs are undeniable, dude. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Anybody else? I would love to hear. How has your relationship with your God of your understanding evolved over your lifetime?
Mine has just come with sheer age and experiences, I feel like we're all born powerful. I was born powerful. But, I was giving it away. I was worshiping fear, limitations, excuses. I put all that up on a pedestal. So I was neglecting my own truth. And when you're young, you don't think about all that. You don't think in depth. You're too busy for God. God doesn't fit in anywhere. It didn't for me. I was busy going to college. I was busy getting married, having kids, raising kids. God did not fit in there. And for me, as I got older and I had more experiences, I started to shift. And so, but Jesus has always been the backdrop of our culture. He's always been in play for me. But I was just too busy. So it's more about not neglecting Robin's truth anymore. God made me powerful. And when I am fearful, when I make excuses, when all of that, then I'm not honoring what God created. And I'm not being the true, authentic Robin. It's just, it takes sometimes people, not everybody, a lifetime to get that. Sometimes you get it young. It comes at different times. It's based on your experiences. Some people never did it. I got it later in life. And that's just how I look at it, is stop neglecting Robin's truth.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Robin.
What has your experience, what's your relationship with your higher power, your God of your understanding been like over your lifetime?
I just wanted to say one more thing. He was with me even in my darkest times, but I pushed him away because I guess I wanted to suffer. I don't know. He was with me the whole time, all my whole life.
Thank you. Thank you for adding that. What's your relationship been like, yo? With God?
It's getting amazing, man. I swear to God. I talk about God all the time. Yeah. I say amen all the time and stuff. How I built my relationship with him, I just started telling him I'm grateful for him. And now I finally got to the point where I love him, you know? Like it's straight progression. And when you start seeing that he's actually working in your life, the shit's crazy. Like, excuse my French, but man, like once you know he's real, it changes your life. And you know me, guys, I would never say this stuff if I didn't believe it. So give it a chance, for real.
And I mean, I agree with you. Anybody else want to share? Please.
Yeah, we did. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good.
Yeah, man.
I mean, for me, I've just become more spiritual over time. I mean, I was born and raised in church, and so I always seen religion when I was younger, and then, and then as I got older, I seen the spiritual side. So it's really changed for me, and I see not somebody sitting up there with a big fly swatter trying to swat you. I see him as a loving God that forgives.
To you, and this goes, unless anybody else want to share before I ask the next question, I'm going to return back to this one, just so you know. What is the difference between religion and spirituality?
Spirituality to me was a warm-up to religion, and religion's just a little easier to get into because it's more structured for me.
Okay.
But spirituality, I respect spirituality. I don't push God, honestly.
Okay.
But if you want him, yes, sir.
Spirituality.
I respect all religions, anything, not just God.
Spirituality is more your relationship with God, and religion is more rules.
True.
Yeah.
True.
So this is individual relationship? Is that what you said?
Yes.
And religion is what?
Like rules.
Like what? I'm sorry.
Rules. RULES.
RULES rules. Thank you.
That's going crazy.
What's the difference between spirituality and religion?
Religion is for those who are afraid to go to hell, and spirituality is for those who have been there. That's right.
I mean, I think for me, spirituality is seeking God every day. And religion is just rules and regulations passed down from generation to generation. So we learn things from other people that denomination. The spirituality is what you see every day when you seek God.
Okay. Anybody else? This is good shit.
I ain't gonna say that, but I was raised in churches up until probably my 30s. Kind of made me think when you said, how long was I drinking before I got caught? Well, I was drinking about 3 years. I was in a terrible car wreck last year and lost my leg in the process. High speed chase, drinking and driving. It was storming outside. But my parents had kept telling me, John, you're going to get in trouble drinking and driving. And it just kept going. I got 6 DUIs in the past 18 months.
Oh, dang.
That's what I'm dealing with right now. But I lost my leg in the process. And once I recovered to a point where they knew I was not going to die, I did ask why. Damn, why does shit have to happen to me? I just drink. I got a good job. I go to work every day, all little shit. Feeling sorry for myself. And my mom said, God had to lay me down so I look up.
Exactly.
Because I was ignoring it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and then when I go to church on Sundays, I've been going for the past, 11 weeks now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, been in church consistently. They say that if you do something 21 days in a row, it become habit.
Exactly.
And when I go to church, it's a feeling that I can't describe to you because I feel like I'm floating on air. I feel free. I'm happy. But then when I get back to the house, I get into my head and it takes me away from God again. So now when I get into that state, I pick up Psalms and Proverbs and I read it. And then I get that feeling back again. And since I've been here, because 12 steps is related to God a lot. Mm-hmm. And so it's easy for me to relate to the 12 steps now because of my relationship with God. But, they say that God don't always give you what you want, but he always gives you what you need. And I believe that shit. So that's been a humbling experience for me. And I ain't trying to walk with that anymore. Dance with the devil is what got me. Dance with the devil is why I'm in the situation I'm in now. In rehab with my family and walking around with one fucking leg.
Yes, sir.
I've had enough. And that was rock bottom for me.
One thing about the 12 steps is only one of them mentions alcohol.
First, yes, sir. That's deep.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. How has your thinking changed throughout your week by attending church once a week since you've been here? Who goes to church in here? Raise your hand if you go to church.
Jim, I got something to say about that.
Yeah, tell me.
Honestly, church doesn't really do it for me. It's my prayer. My prayer is what helps it. I go to church every weekend, but I'd say prayer is more powerful. I like the worship part at church, the music and stuff, but the pastor really doesn't. He relates things to God and messages, but I get more talking directly to him.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Thank you for sharing. How does going to church once a week kind of make you think differently throughout your week?
It makes me think, but it also scares me.
Yeah.
It also scares me, because why would anybody, if you want to feel good and do good in life, And you have that feeling every time you go to church. Well, I let it go. Every time I go to church. I don't care about nothing negative in my life. I really don't care about nothing negative in the world. Once I go to church and once I walk up out of there.
Yes, sir.
When I turn on TV and watch the news, all that great feeling is gone again because now I'm questioning God. And that's been one of my problems. Trying to play God and question God has been two of my issues. So I no longer do that.
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
It is a slow process.
For sure.
And they say time takes time. I heard that in church about 2-3 weeks ago. So I say that to myself every morning. Time does take time. Can't change everything overnight.
Mhm. Yeah, I go ahead.
Accept me on that. I really do, because once you understand that if you accept something, it don't mean it's all right, it don't mean it's okay. You know, it just means that that's what that person did.
You know, and we talked about acceptance last night in the AA.
Yeah, that's
That
good.
was the topic. It was
It was ours
acceptance.
too.
Huh?
It was ours too.
Yeah.
Dang.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ours have it too.
2 different AA meetings talking about acceptance.
Wow.
I needed acceptance last night. I was dealing with some of this.
Well, that probably tells you how important acceptance is.
Yeah.
A lot of people are talking.
Exactly. Exactly. It makes the process smoother. Makes the process smoother.
Yeah, I think that movie we watched too really hit home for me. What was that one where the Trinity was revealed? Yeah, but how you seen it? A good person.
Oh, the
And then the judgment part of it, you know, I have kids. And if my kids were doing bad stuff, it would be very hard for me to send one of my kids to hell.
Oh, you're talking about the shack.
No, is that what it was? The judgment?
Oh, yeah. that was-
Yeah, the two different movies right together. But yeah, but when they, so here's the judgment. So I think there's acceptance too. So what happened, it happened. I can't take it back. But that, I don't want one of my kids to live in hell over it.
Yeah.
You know? But boy, I tell you, the victim becomes the victim.
It's true though.
Yeah, anybody else want to share? I love this topic. This is like my favorite discussion.
I believe in karma. I believe in good and bad karma, but I still believe in God too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do too. I was raised Irish Catholic in Boston, Massachusetts, dude. And
Yeah, she's got a Boston shirt on.
yeah, New England. What's up?
Yeah.
So I was CCD. You know, I didn't go to church every weekend, but I went to church. You know, on Christmas and Easter, and I had CCD. I got confirmed, First Holy Communion, all that stuff, baptized, and I never personally. I never took it seriously. I never believed it. I never. To me, it was just an after-school thing that me and my friends did, and I got to hang out with my friends. That was all it was. I got to hang out with my friends more, and we would laugh and have fun. You know, I always saw the books and the movies as just an opportunity for something to laugh at. Until I ended up, in my relationship with God, ended up becoming curious. Like I went on my own journey. And I was like, I'm going to figure out who this God is. Let's see who God is after, 6 hits of LSD. And never found God after anything like that. I thought I did. And then I started getting into active addiction. And I always thought that God was, at this point, my relationship with God was one that was like, you're hurting me. Like, you're out to get me. Like, he was someone who was resentful and spiteful and bitter and was out to hurt me. So I kind of avoided the relationship. As a matter of fact, when bad things would happen in my life, I blamed God. I said, this is God's fault. Like, God's the one who ruined that relationship. God's the one who did this. God's the one who did that. And even though I'm sitting there blaming God for all my problems, I end up getting to a point where when I would find a $20 bill on the ground, I would thank God. You know what I mean? Or if I was getting pulled over by the cops from leaving area buying drugs, I would pray, God, please get me out of the position. I'll never do anything, I swear, you know? And the crazy thing is, he basically would get me out of those situations. You know what I mean? And some of the situations he didn't get me out of, but some he did. And it wasn't until I went into rehab and I was offered to go to church. They were like, yo, you want to come to church? I was like, fuck no, dude. I'm not sitting down, kneeling, getting up, eating the fucking wafer. I'm not doing that, dude. I'm dope sick, kid. And they said, no, it's different. It's a different church, yada, yada, yada. And I went and checked it out reluctantly. And it was incredible. I had a blast. It was different than any church I had ever been to before. This is not a push for people to go to church. You know, it's just merely my experience. I ended up going to church for 3 years after that. And, you know, I still every weekend follow the church when they go on live on YouTube. I listen to what's his name? I got all the things recorded on my TV. I'm listening to them every day. I can't remember yeah.
You know what also deterred me from God was fake Christians, but I think that's with any religion. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting here and lie to you that I always knew God was real, and I don't know, man. Like, I used to be a firm agnostic by choice, bro. And then just give it a chance, like a genuine chance, just like this program. That's all I'm saying.
Yep. Just like this program. I think it goes off back to like what Robin was saying. You know what I mean? I think it takes experience. I think it takes time. You know, I think it took time for me to realize that God was in my life the whole time. You know, it took me time to realize that God does answer my prayers. Like, I prayed to be sober and he helped me. He gave me the opportunity to step through that door to make that happen. That's what I had to start seeing, is God isn't going to come down and fix my problems. He's going to open the door for me to walk through to have my problems fixed. And he's not going to put me in a problem that I don't already have the tool to get out of. And that to me was like, I can get out of these problems. I can do it. I just have to trust that it's going to happen. And we may already have this relationship. We may already consciously be there. It's like, well, how can I make it even better? Where are the areas of my life that I don't want to feel pain anymore? And I got to hand over to God. And I got to let him take the reins on it, you know? And I think there's a combination. There's not only, like, I think the individual journey is the spiritual journey, but there are rules and regulations that people must follow for the outcomes we want to happen. So in my opinion, it's like where like spirituality and science kind of meet, you know what I mean? But nowadays, I think that the journey of religion and people's experience with religion could be comparative, like we were saying, to a 12-step program. You know, yeah, there's the 12-step program, or there's treatment, or there's whatever means of recovery you choose. There's the rules and there's the regulations that you got to follow to complete that program, whatever program we choose to complete, you know? And we have to accept those rules. We have to accept those regulations. We have to accept those truths in which we cannot change. My spiritual journey is my development through following those rules and regulations. The development that occurs within me. And what is that spiritual development? The spiritual development that changes is ability to manage emotions and change in thinking about what's right and wrong. So we have change in morals, change in emotions, and it becomes like a free spirit. This is where we get into the spiritual awakening. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes we lose a leg. Sometimes we see a video on YouTube. There's no telling what is going to cause us to have this spiritual awakening, which means that every single day I could have an opportunity to have this happen. And if I'm not taking a moment at the end of my day to see what opportunities God has given me to change in the way he needs me to change to become the person I need to become, then these opportunities may just fly by. They just scoot on by. And sometimes the opportunities aren't like, hey, congratulations, you got a new job. Sometimes the opportunities are like, hey, you need to lose 50 pounds or you might have a heart attack in the next 6 months. It's like I don't get to choose what the changes are or how they're presented to me or how the message is given to me. I'm the one who has to listen to the message. I have to receive the message. I have to take time and be like, well, what am I doing? What am I trying to do? What is the goal? Where should I put my intent? What power do I need? What knowledge must I have? Where does God want me to go? If this is just a stepping stone, then what's the next step? 12-step programs, treatment centers can offer you some of those tools that you can use, a way of life, a way of thinking and decision making and change that you could apply to your daily living to develop this change. And it works if you work it. It does, dude. You know, religions work if you work them. You know, like they work, dude. You know, so if you're allowing it to work, and yeah, there may be those fake Christians, the hypocrites, the priests, and the pastors who, you know, drive expensive cars. Yeah, dude, they're gonna be out there, bro. You know, but hypocrites give great advice. So it's like, yeah, they may be some fucking dickhead pastor who's embezzling money or some shit, but what he's saying is actually valid. You know what I mean? It may be, and what we see is sometimes the message, like the messenger is the vessel that God chose to give the message. I'm not the one who has to worry and question why God chose this person to give me the message. I'm the one who has to be open to the message. I'm the one who's got to be ready for it. And there's no telling when it's going to happen. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back at 10:30. And when we come back, we're going to start talking about prayer. What is prayer? How do I pray? Do I pray? What's that like? May get into some meditation. But we're going to talk all about it when we get back. So far, great job, everybody. I'll see you when you get back. 10:30.
Yes, sir.